the first 2 years were such a grind. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about my wife, who is like the smartest, most calm person and practical person in the world. You know,
Had you guys ever worked together before that?
At the nightclub?
Aside from that,
kind of like,
because that's kind of separate.
Yeah,
you had separate roles.
separate.
You were kind of passing.
No, we didn't.
Interesting.
And we never fought or anything like that. We never. It wasn't even like, it was just like we all had the same goal in mind. Mm-hmm. So we were rowing the boat in the same direction. Mm-hmm. You know, no one was going off course. And the first 2 years was just a grind. I mean, we just kept battling. And then after 2 years, it just shot up. It just took off.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert McFarland. And today's episode, we had a great conversation with Chris Connors, local restaurateur, owner of Farmstead Bakery and FS Coffee Company downtown, our brand partners. We were excited to have him come on and chat about his story, his family, how he got here, what inspired him to start Farmstead and all those things. We hope you enjoy this episode, focusing in on local businesses here in St. George. Make sure you like and subscribe, share to your friends and family. We're excited to continue to feature businesses here in Southern Utah, as well as covering big important topics, things that we need to discuss here in Southern Utah. So enjoy this episode. We're grateful for all of our subscribers and our followers. We're growing so quickly, and we're so grateful for the support that we have from the community we're building. Shout out to Blueform Media, our production company. You guys do an outstanding job. You guys rock. And we'll see you guys out there. Enjoy this episode.
We came through St. George.
Yeah.
And I mean, we came through it. You know, it was just like, do you want Chick-fil-A or do you want... we always made fun of... And we made fun of it because we didn't know it, but it was Chuckarama. We're like, what is Chuckarama? I still have never been into Chuckarama.
I've never been there
I'm
either.
sure it's great.
Yeah, somebody was telling me the other day that they love it. And I'm like, I've legitimately had zero interest in going in there. But I just can't think of them as
buffet. And coming from an outside perspective, I was just like, you know, Chick-fil-A, Chuckarama, and, you know, just franchise. I mean, St. George is still very much a national franchise haven. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things where, you know, I was a franchisee. I was a franchisor. Mm-hmm. So I've been both, and I could definitely speak to, you know, I mean, franchises are just different. They're run as a different business. Mm-hmm. It's just a different business model altogether. So nothing against franchises. It's a safer bet if you're gonna own a restaurant, you're gonna open a restaurant. But now, where I'm at in my life, it's like I want to go in and I want to change a community. Yeah. And that's why I'm here. That's what I want to do. That's my passion. Yeah. And you know, that's why we decided to open Farmstead and FS Coffee. So, you know, it's like St. George is very it reminds me, growing up in Vegas, it reminds me of how Vegas was when I was probably in middle school. Or high school, and probably like, you know, I graduated high school in 97. Okay. So Las Vegas was very different in the early 90s. It was franchise. There's no really unique, cool, funky restaurants. Now there are, because those chefs who worked on the Strip have branched out. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to get that here in time. Yeah. It's going to take some time, but we'll get there.
Being a destination, like a resort town, I think it's just delayed. You know, you get certain services because it being a vacation type town. You know, we don't have a lot of labor. We don't have a big labor workforce, and we don't have any metropolitan area to draw from. There's no other populated area that's close by that we can, you know, draw from to help with, you know, those entry level positions. You know, labor. You know, I guess they're just job starters, right? Those first time jobs. And that lack of population seems like probably the biggest challenge with restaurants. Am I understanding? Do you think that's true? Or?
I don't know if it's a lack of population or a lack of talent. I mean, the first thing you need is talent. You know, you need talent to run a popular,
and talent that's not retired.
talent that's not retired. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I got a lot of talent. There's a lot of people that have opinions, but
we actually have done really well with the retired population at Farmstead. I love hiring people who have a passion towards food and are retired. Yeah. And we have one person who works 2 days a week, and I love her. She's great. Yeah. And she brings with her such great life experience too. And we definitely need talent when it comes, just like anything else. I mean, if you want to be great at something, you have to find a way to get talent, hire talented people, and try to find a way to how much. I mean, my biggest thing is how can I pay them? If I have to open up another establishment to bring in talented people, I am willing to do that.
What do you mean by that?
So a lot of my chef friends in Las Vegas, some of them are looking to move to St. George. Some of them aren't right for St. George, but some of them would be a great fit. So, I'm always looking for a spot to where it's like, hey, I have this Michelin-starred chef that wants to be here. By all means, I will try to go out of my way to find an establishment for him, go in on an ownership interest with them. And that's how we found Chris Heron, our late chef. That's how we have Farmstead. Yeah. I talked to Chris and he said, I don't want to do anything in Vegas. I wanted to leave Las Vegas. We wanted to leave. We wanted to move somewhere else where we could raise our family, raise our 2 boys. And I said, what about St. George? I love St. George. And he's like, cool. St. George it is. And so I found him an apartment. That apartment was, it was like behind the Psychic on St. George Boulevard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know exactly that spot.
So I was like, dude, I don't have any money. Yeah. This is all I can afford. Are you cool with that? And he was like, whatever. I don't care. He's like, let's just do something special. Like, that's cool. We're just going to blow these people away with what we're going to do. And Chris just had an insane talent. He was one of the best people I've ever seen in the hospitality industry, even outside the kitchen. Like, he just knew how to speak to people. He knew how to make people feel special. Yeah. And in the kitchen, he was just a different level. And he made a way of keeping things so simple, complex things simple. And so, he was living behind, he didn't have a car, so he would walk to work, walk to Farmstead. We chose Farmstead because he's like, hey, this place has a lot of parking across the street. And, this wasn't my first rodeo. I've done restaurants before, so I knew, how to do a lease, how to do a build out, pre-opening, who to hire, what to look for, all that kind of stuff. So I was fortunate in that realm. And at the time we had 2 operating restaurants in Las Vegas. And we sold one of them, since then, but, that one probably is the reason why we sold it is so we could do future farmsteads. But, so finding talented people, I said, do you have anyone you want to bring with you? And he said, yeah, I have someone that worked with me at Bouchon and he's phenomenal. And his name's Ben. He's our head baker. Yeah. He worked at Bouchon, I think for 11 years. So, one Michelin-starred restaurant, and he knew about consistency and cleanliness and obviously putting out a great product. So, that's kind of like in a nutshell how Farmstead started, just finding a talented person. And I said, screw it. Like, let's do it. I know nothing about baking. Yeah. He got me a book. Chris got me a book, Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast. It was by Ken Forkish, who owns a restaurant in Portland. And he's like, read this book and follow some recipes and, do this. And at the time, when Chris gave me that book, it was years before we opened Farmstead. And I owned a restaurant called Rachel's Kitchen in Las Vegas. And I sold it back to the franchise. I was the first franchisee and I was director of franchise operations for them. We had 7 locations. We opened 6 additional locations while I was there. And I trained the staff and all that kind of stuff, but I only owned one location. And so he's like, I sold it. I moved to Springdale. My wife and I moved to Springdale right after we sold Rachel's Kitchen.
What year was this?
This was 2015.
Okay.
So we moved to Springdale because my wife loved Southern Utah and that area.
I mean, talk about a place that, oh my God, every time I'm there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish
it's heaven, man.
It's
just
so
beautiful.
amazing. It's so beautiful.
And we were doing a road trip. So our goal was to do a road trip around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the two of us. This is before kids.
That's so funny. We moved here in 2015 before kids, and we were going to go travel and teach English. So we stopped here in St. George from California. We were both working in restaurants, and my parents had a house here as a second home. And
We're in California.
Shout out to my mom and dad. We were living in Huntington Beach, right off 405. Just down from
beautiful
Garden Grove, and it's sounds nice, Huntington Beach, but we weren't on the beach. It wasn't. We were up the street. But I was working at BJ's Restaurants and Brewery. I was a manager for them. Yeah. And then Katie had opened, I think it was the second Lazy Dog. I don't know if you're familiar with Lazy Dog Cafe. Mimi's Cafe. The what was the name of that family? She'd be like, I can't remember. You can't believe you forgot them. But anyway, Lazy Dog. She opened the one that was in Irvine as a bartender, and I was driving up to Downey from Huntington Beach up to Downey. And so it was like an hour and a half because it's always traffic, right? Depending on the shift that we're at. And I did a lot of the closing shifts, and she was working the night shifts in Irvine. So it would take like an hour for her to go that way, an hour and a half for me to go this way. And so in 2015, we quit the jobs and we moved into my parents' home that they were ultimately going to retire in. Just while we saved up some money, we were going to go travel and just go figure it out. And we were 2 months here, and she got pregnant.
Oh man!
Right, and I was like, well, I guess this is where we're going to land.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it's Southern Utah,
but we fell in love with it. We fell in love,
especially coming from Las Vegas or a Southern California. I lived in North County, San Diego. For a while, and I mean, it sounds great. Yeah. Right. Where do you live? San Diego. Oh, it must be nice. I'm like, have you ever been on the 5 at 4:15? It's not nice.
It's not.
I mean, there are obviously some great things. The weather's one of them. Yeah. The food and beverage, that side of it is great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we got in our car and we're like, we're going to take a couple months road trip around the country, do national parks, all that kind of stuff, some great hiking, all that camping. And our first night was in Springdale, and my wife is an open house.
Yeah, I know. You told me the word. We'll bleep it out. But you told me what the word was last time.
She is crazy about Stacy is my wife's name.
Hi, Stacy.
Stacy is crazy about open houses. If there is an open house and she's driving by it, or I'm driving by it, it's a stop. Like as soon as I see it, I'm like, ugh. But she's like, honey, can we go in? Like, I mean, wow, that's a nice front yard. And I'm like, we aren't buying a house. I don't know why. Oh, I just want to get some ideas and, whatever. So we go into this open house. It's behind Soul Foods in Springdale, and they're little like townhomes. Yeah. And the only time my wife has really acted, very quick with a big financial decision. Yeah. And she's like, hey, I think we should get this house. And I was like, you kidding me? She's like, no, I think we should make an offer. And so we did. And, as that process was being done, we continued our road trip. Mm-hmm. And it was a little townhome right behind Soul Foods. And at the time, it wasn't how it is today, how Springdale is today. Yeah. I mean, that was 2015. So, I mean, it was getting very popular. But
the average price point in Washington County was probably like $260.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
$260 or $275. I bet it was the average.
I think we bought that townhome for $250. Yeah. So, and it was 1,000 square feet, tiny. But it was great for us.
And that was probably the most expensive townhome in all of Washington County at the time.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
And it was 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath. We didn't have a TV. We didn't want a TV in there. We didn't even do like internet for like the first 3 or 4 months. It was just like, hey, we're going. We had my dog Kershaw, who we still have, and he's an old boy now. But I went on a walk with him. I think I did maybe 1,000 miles on my car in 6 months.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't go I walked everywhere, and it was awesome. So we took a road trip around the country, and, we went to amazing cities, and it was a foodie trip, and, all that kind of stuff. And then we lived in Springdale, and that's where we kind of fell in love with it. And I wanted to do something, talk about coming full circle. I wanted to do something in Springdale. I wanted to do a breakfast, lunch, dinner cafe. And we had a deal with a person, and it was kind of like a handshake deal. And the day that we went to sign things, she just said, "Hey, I'm having second thoughts. I think I'm going to keep it." And I was devastated because I put in so much money already to get it appraised, and
all the emotional energy, all that stuff. Yeah.
The menu. I mean, just doing a menu.
Oh my gosh.
It's so time consuming.
Yeah.
And the recipes, and the look, and, what we were going for. And I still have the name, and the name will be used in a future location and future concept, because I think it's an awesome name. But, so the day she let me know, obviously devastated. And the day after, my old landlord, who we had the restaurant with in Las Vegas, it was a mall called The District, in Green Valley. And, he called me, and he's the owner of the company. It's a company called Vestar, and, they own, the Gateway also up north.
Okay.
In Salt Lake City. And he said, "Hey, Chris, remember you and I were walking together when I went to go visit, and you said, 'Hey, that yogurt shop, if it ever goes out of business, I want to do something there.'" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, it went out of business." And he goes, "It went out of business like you thought," because they had 15-year-olds running it.
Yeah.
It was yogurt, so they were giving it all to their friends and all that kind of stuff. Little tiny place. It was 770 square feet, and I told him I wanted to do a taco shop there.
Perfect.
So, and we moved back to Las Vegas reluctantly. Like, my wife, Las Vegas has been very good to us. It was a very special place for us. And I'm super thankful and happy that we lived there at the time we lived there, because I was very fortunate to get the positions that I had working in the hospitality industry, and Mirage and Wynn, and, the Palms at Rain nightclub, and all that kind of stuff, Mandalay Bay, 1 Michelin-starred restaurants, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm super fortunate. And then we opened Me Gusta, and I just was at the point in my life where it's like, hey, I'm going to start a family here. And that's when I reached out to my business partner, now business partner still. His name's Lee. And I think you've met Lee
I met Lee
a couple times. So he was really good at things that I was terrible at. Fixing equipment, fixing anything I'm terrible at. I always gave it a shot, and then I'm like, you know what? Some people just aren't good at this.
I'm the exact same. I'm the exact same way.
I'm just
I fixed
bad.
my faucet the other day. I felt so great. I felt so great.
Congratulations.
Jeff Watkins, he's the exact opposite though too. He wants to fix like the cars.
Yeah.
If there's something broken, he's like, let me see if I can fix it.
Thanks.
Yeah, me too. I'm like,
no thanks.
Can we just buy a new one?
Yeah.
I think we could just buy a new one.
Yeah, and I'm the same exact way. And Lee takes things apart. So Lee's in charge of all of our like build outs. And he knows his construction stuff, Yeah. And so that I just said I need a partner like that. And I asked him. And at the time, how I got to know Lee is he worked with Stacy, my wife, at Mandalay Bay. They were Kibana hosts. And she's like, Chris, this guy Lee, he's like exactly like you with restaurants. He goes into restaurants and sees how many, he'll see how many people are working, what the price point is, how many people are going in, how many square feet, what hood they have, all this kind of stuff.
Once you're doing it, I was the exact same way. Once it's like,
it's a sickness.
It's a sickness.
Yeah.
It honestly, it's probably because I've been in real estate 8 years now. And then there was a 1 year gap. So I'm like almost 10 full years out of being in the restaurant. And so I don't do it as much anymore. Yeah. But I couldn't help. Like you'd walk into a restaurant, you'd just be able to see everything from a manager, owner's perspective.
Is it clean? Am I being greeted? What's the service like? How's the staff dressed? How's the kitchen look?
Yeah.
First thing I still do when I go into restaurants is I go into the restroom. See how that's maintained.
Yeah.
And I walk out. Too, I walk out if it's super dirty. I'm like, nope.
Yeah. If they can't take care of that one, I don't want to know what else they can take care of.
Exactly. Just imagine what their kitchen's like. So Yeah, we opened up Me Gusta Tacos in 2016, beginning of 2016. And 770 square feet, little tiny taco shop. And, our goal was to just do, obviously one at a time, but our goal was to grow there. So we opened up another location a couple years later across town and franchised that location out. And then sold that location right before kind of like COVID hit. And they sold that location. The franchisees sold it. Actually, it was right after COVID. They sold it back. They sold the lease to another operator. And they moved back. They were from the Philippines. So they moved back to the Philippines. And we actually were running Me Gusta for up until last year. May of last year, we sold it. And then in between, we opened up, same thing. Landlord called me, said, "Hey, this guy bailed on his lease. It's 1,000 square feet. What would you do there?" And I look at it and I'm like, a wine and cocktail lounge would just crush it here. And he's like, done. So it was my first time doing all of that process, the liquor licensing and all that kind of stuff. I love wine. I love tasting it. I'm certificate 1 Somm. I say I was certificate 1 Somm because I really don't drink a whole lot of wine anymore. So, that was just being in the restaurant industry in Las Vegas, you kind of have to know your wine.
I had my sister-owned license because I was BJ's Restaurant and Brewery. We were a brewery, so I had my certificates as a cicerone. So like going through that process, you just kind of have to know because you can't be the lowest common denominator. You have to assume that the person sitting at the bar knows everything, and to get them to come back, it's a combination of the food and the beverage and the service that goes into play, right? And that's something I think is super unique from a business perspective, right? A retail store, a shop that you just go in and buy something, you don't necessarily have to have the perfect combination of the two things. But restaurants, you have to have a perfect combination of two things, and then you have to execute it.
No doubt.
Every single time.
No doubt. Yeah. So we opened up the local, and it was somewhat unique to Las Vegas at the time, because Las Vegas, if you're in a bar in Las Vegas off the strip, it's all gaming. It's all gaming. That's all they care about. And they'll comp your drinks and all that kind of stuff. And to me, those bars were the most depressing places on earth.
Yeah.
They were all dark. There were no windows, and people would just gamble their lives away. And to me, I just wanted something that you would find in Huntington Beach, in Newport Beach, very Southern California vibe, big open windows. We did the garage door thing, we did that. What was that? 7 years ago. So, wine, 100 choices of wine, old world and new world, some beers on tap, good happy hour, meat and cheese boards, all
tapas,
that kind of stuff.
Type stuff.
And then, so we did that. And when 2020 hit, we still had our place in Springdale, but we were always rented it out to park rangers, but they would always leave in December and January.
Yeah.
And I love that time of year in Springdale because you have the entire park to yourself.
Yeah.
And you could park down at Temple of Sinawava. There's no shuttle.
Yeah.
So you could go down there by yourself and just hang out. And so that's what I did in December and January a lot of the time. And when 2020 hit, Las Vegas shut down all the restaurants. And we found ourselves going to the Town Place in Washington. At the time, it was new. It was right near the golf course, Green Springs. Is it Town Place or is it Town Suites? The Marriott?
Yeah. Town Suites, yeah.
Yeah, Town Suites. And at the time, it was new. And Utah was like, there was no masks. It was open.
Yeah,
it was like normal. It was great. So we had kids at the time, and I'm like, we could stay here for like 3 or 4 days and then go back. I could work, but they shut down the restaurant. So it's like, why not just stay here for a little bit?
Yeah.
And at that time we just said, I'm going to look for some spaces. And that's when we found the Farmstead space.
Yeah.
And then, we lived in that apartment in Jewel Apartments while we were getting that place going. And then obviously the real estate craziness, I couldn't find a home for the life of us.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Even my wife going to every open house, but there weren't even open houses because they would just sell right away. There would just be no open houses. So we finally found a place, a dirt lot in downtown, and we ended up building there. It was just such a blessing, and super thankful for everything that's kind of happened, and that's
kind of folded perfectly a little bit, huh?
Yeah. And that's kind of how we're here.
Did you have any expectations, now kind of looking backwards, just expectations of what it would be? Because I guess the decision to move here, I didn't realize that it was back in, 2015. You were in Springdale. You kind of had already fallen in love with the place, and then, life takes you away, and then he brings you back, which kind of Jeff Watkins' story is kind of that same way. Thinking about where did you grow up? Let me ask that question. That's probably...
So I was born in the high desert, which is the high desert of California, which is Apple Valley, Victorville, Hesperia.
Yeah.
I was born there. It's like where you stop to get, right before you go down the hill.
Yeah.
So, that's where you stop to get gas. Now you don't even stop to get gas because you're afraid of, what.
There's a lot more houses up there now.
A lot more houses because they're being priced out in the LA market.
Yeah, it boomed up there.
Rancho Cucamonga. I mean, even the people in Rancho Cucamonga can't, they all go up to Hesperia and all that kind of stuff. So that's where my mom's family's from. And then my dad's, they graduated from Apple Valley High School there.
Oh, wow.
And at a young age, at 6 years old, my dad moved us. He was in the sports information industry. So, funny story. It's kind of crazy, but we moved there at 6 years old. My dad did sports talk radio. So he did, before it obviously is what it is today. There's so many people out in that market, but he did it at a place called the Stardust. The Stardust was a hotel in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So he was one of the first people to do. He was a college football consultant.
Okay.
So he had clients throughout the nation that paid him for his advice on college football games.
So they could kind of gamble on it? Is that kind of what the thought was?
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And he did some like horse racing as well and all that kind of stuff. Sports information.
Yeah.
So, my dad never really concentrated too much on my schooling. For me, I was taught at a young age, I think at 8 or 9, I knew how to read a racing form. And so like my education was like Santa Anita racetrack. And that's what I remember.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had a good education. I went to a private Catholic grade school. We didn't grow up with money.
Yeah.
But my dad and my mom, they always found a way to make it work. We never had, us going to a restaurant was like, someone's graduating or it's someone's birthday, and it's probably like someone that's not related to us, but we were invited to go and they were pitching in on the bill. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
my dad's like, hey, you get to go to Chili's tonight. And I was like, yeah. But,
Chili's is the best.
Yeah, for sure. So, but now that I look at it, handicapping a race is so much like handicapping business.
Interesting.
You have horses. When you look at the racing form, you know what type of horse it is, what it looks like, who the jockey is, who the trainer is, how much it was sold for, their past experience, their past workouts, all their times on, their fractions of what they ran, what track they ran out, what the weather condition was like, all these different variables.
Yeah.
And it kind of just gives you an idea of how business works as well. So when I look at a business as a whole, I look at all those things, and you have to call it the whole thing is you got to call it before it happens, right? Everyone's a Monday morning quarterback. You're right 100% of the time after the fact. Great job. Like everyone is that way.
Yeah.
But calling it before it happens is really what makes an entrepreneur special.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how is the economy going to be the next year? What are people going to eat? What are the trends? What are the trends that are going to stay? Are people going back, at times where the economy takes a dip? Usually people go back to those classic
staples,
sandwiches, burgers, things like that. And then they obviously watch what they're spending. Pastry, all that kind of stuff, those are some of the things that people always go back to because they know it and they trust it. And that's part of the brand. It's like with Farmstead, people know it, they trust it. They know that we're passionate about what we do, all that kind of stuff. So like handicapping those things, on Saturdays, my dad would sit there with 3 TVs in his room, and we had a big, huge, gigantic satellite, not like
I had one of those too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Big,
and you'd watch it move.
Yeah.
It had the bar, had the bar and you could see it like moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
So he would be watching coaches shows and all that kind of stuff. Most college football primarily. And, me getting that side, now that I look at it, it gave me an opportunity to really see, how to run a business and how to run a staff. I was always in sports. So, in high school, I played soccer and baseball, and in college I played baseball. And, I always try to run my companies almost like a sports team on the different personalities that you have. I mean, my GM is my head coach. I'm the owner, but I'm also the general manager. I have to, assign different things to different people and see personalities and who works with what and who's, I play to everyone's strengths as opposed to their weaknesses, but then I hire to other people's weaknesses,
Right.
For example, myself and Lee, my business partner, Lee is a very technical, a lot of employees go to Lee for like professional things. Like, I need this microphone fixed. They're not going to go to me.
Right.
They go to Lee and they're like, Lee, can you fix this? If they want someone to talk to or they need someone to talk to, more often than not, they go to me because I have a little bit more warmth, right? Lee's, and I do the interviews and I do the people side of things. Yeah. Lee's, like I said, he's more
technician
of a technical type of side. So, together, I think that's why we make a good
balanced team,
good crew. Yeah.
And so going back to, because I know you like baseball and I like those key performing indicators, right? Those KPIs, like what are those key indicators? So when you were a kid, what did you want to do? Like going back as early as you could think, like, was there a job that you wanted to do?
Okay. So here's I was the first person in my family to graduate college.
Nice.
Okay. So I went, and I think what drove me is, so I in high school, I went to a private Catholic high school in Las Vegas.
Okay.
It's well known for football now and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I never got good grades. I never paid attention to it. I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Go out and get good grades. By the way, kids,
don't take that message.
Kids listening, go out and get good grades. I'm really proud of my son, my oldest, because he's getting good grades. And, obviously that's super important. But my sophomore year, I was a class clown. I was a clown.
Mm-hmm.
I was just stupid about it.
Nothing serious. You're taking things seriously.
I didn't care, and I didn't think it was serious at all. I played. My life was soccer and baseball.
Yeah.
And my sophomore year, my dad, I got hurt, and they came up to my parents and they're like, "Hey, you got to pay tuition now." And my dad's like, "You're going to public school." So I ended up going to public school.
Oh my gosh.
And I transfer and I make the varsity squad and all this kind of stuff in baseball. And coach comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, do you know what a GPA is?" And I was like, grade point average? He's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You have a 1.5 GPA." And I was like, I didn't even know that. I never got a grade where I went to school. It was just like, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, it was just like,
you're fine. You play
sports, you're good.
You're good. And so that I learned a hard lesson. I couldn't play baseball that year. My junior year, obviously, I'm playing varsity and all this kind of stuff, and I didn't really get along with the coaches. My dad, who was influential in my sports, he didn't get along with them as well. So my senior year rolls around for baseball. You know, my soccer season's over in the fall, and so I played baseball. And you know, they had tryouts, and tryouts were like a technicality. It was just like everyone knew who was going to make the team. And the tryout, the varsity thing comes out, and my name's not on it. And I was like, what's going on? And they're like, yeah, we don't want you on the team this year. And I was like, what?
But why?
You know? Yeah, but why? And that was, looking back on it, that was one of the best things that ever happened in my life. And they had their reasons. They didn't really like, you know,
personality fits.
Not me. I was a quiet kid. I was really, you wouldn't know that now, but I was super shy, and I didn't speak unless I was spoken to, and I was really socially awkward. And in many ways, probably I still am, but
it's funny. Restaurants would, my wife, she's an introvert naturally. But we would put her on the bar top because when we started dating, we were both bartenders at a steakhouse. And on Friday, Saturday nights, we'd put Katie on the bar top because she'd just get people talking.
Yeah, yeah.
And her mechanism was, he's like, I don't have to talk. I just have to ask questions. And then they'll just do all the talking. I don't have to do anything. So we just put her on the bar top, and then we'd make great tips from her, and then we just worked well.
Yeah.
And you get this, you learn social, you know, there's a lot of social cues that you can learn from a restaurant because you're just, you know, one person right after another, right? Customer after customer. You learn, you know, how to deal with different personality profiles. But yeah, there's been education in socialization in restaurants. So
and so I didn't know what to do. That was my life.
Yeah.
Baseball was my life at that point.
Yeah.
And you know, I got on a summer team, a Legion baseball team after my senior year. And we were good. And we won a tournament in Las Vegas. And then we went down to Mammoth my senior year. And, you know, coach saw me play, and he goes, hey, I like you. I'd like to bring you up to Northern California, and you could play college baseball for us. And I was like, yeah, this is great. I didn't want to be in Las Vegas. I was an 18-year-old kid. I wanted to do something outside of Las Vegas. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see something else. So I went to a really small school in Northern California. It was called Feather River Community College. Interesting. And it was in Plumas County. It's in between Reno and Chico. Okay. I went up there, and, you know, I remember my dad driving me up, and he gave me $100, and he's like, hey, this is all we got. You got to make this work. Obviously, I took out student loans and stuff like that, but they put me on like a little bit of a what was technically a scholarship, but it was like it was like a good neighbor policy type of thing because I was in Nevada and this was a California school, so like interesting. I got some breaks there and some grant money because my parents didn't make much. So I went to college there for 3 years, community college. Nice. I was really smart.
Nice.
As you could see, I went to community college for 3 years. I needed to go for 2. I actually graduated after 2, but I got hurt my sophomore year, and I wanted to stick around because I was growing as a person. I was still growing. I was adding weight and I was adding muscle, and I wanted to stick around for my second athletic year. Yeah. So that was like the best thing that happened to me. I mean, I did well on the team, and I actually accepted a scholarship to a Division II school in Miami to play baseball, which was called Barry University. Okay. And I was an education major at Feather River. I was a history major. I fell in love with history. Yeah. Loved it. And I wanted to be a high school history coach and coach baseball. Yeah. And I found out in college, once I had a really great coach that invested in his people, in his team, in his players,
in more than just baseball, right?
In life. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I learned so many things. To this day, I still write down goals on my mirror, on my bathroom mirror, and I write down personal goals, financial goals, professional goals, family goals. And I change, I do that all the time. I write it in my phone, whenever, and the art of visualization is really what I learned there. Yeah. I visualize every day. Yeah. We did a catering today with the Chamber of Commerce. I woke up at I don't know what time I woke, 3:30 in the morning. Right. So I woke up I woke up early, and I mean, the first thing I do is I do yoga, I do stretching, I do a little workout, and then I sit and visualize for a second. And today I visualize like how well that catering is going to go. And I open, I picture myself, and I open up the box, and I see ham and cheese croissants, like beautiful, perfect ham and cheese croissants. And guess what happened? Today I open up and that box of croissants, and I was like, man, that's just how I visualized it.
That's awesome.
And I learned the art of visualization, and it worked for me as an athlete, going through innings, visualizing innings, me pitching as a pitcher, and me hitting on, little things, how I would take a strike, how I would, swing and miss, but obviously get over that obstacle and hit a base hit through the middle or something like that.
Yeah.
So I graduated there at Feather River, went to Barry University in North Miami Shores, and I absolutely hated it. The program was okay, and I was doing really well at the program. And I just did not like Miami. I at the time I had a girlfriend and all this kind of stuff, and it was a really hard school. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a physical therapy major now. And I changed my major like an idiot. And no one told me that you got to pass like these classes. I mean, kinesiology was like the tip. I was just like, okay, I got kinesiology, and then all these other science, and I'm like, subclasses. My strength is not science. And I loved anatomy because I use anatomy still every day on how I stretch and what feels good and all this kind of stuff. So, I left Barry, went back home, and keep in mind, in the summertime, I was working at the Mirage as a lifeguard. So, and I was promoted at the Mirage, and, I kind of had that in the back of my head. I was like, my playing days, like they made me an offer on a team in Australia, and I was like, man, that sounds pretty cool. But, at the time I was just like, I need to start making money, and I never grew up with money. And it was so nice to like have a checking account with money in it and stuff like that. And I was like, this is so cool. Like I'm actually out on my own and all this kind of stuff. So when I came back from Barry, I still didn't have a car or anything like that. And I was taking the bus to work in Las Vegas, and the bus system sucks in Las Vegas. So I'm taking two buses. I was taking the 133 to the 201, and it would take me 3 hours to get to the Mirage. But,
you had to do what you had to do.
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it. And so I would go to the Mirage, and I thought my playing days were over. I'm like, I'm going to go to UNLV and just graduate. Yeah. So I changed my major back to history, and I was like, I'm taking history classes now, and it was great. It was fine. I was doing well. And that summer in late July or early August, I get a call from this university in Kansas, and they're like, hey, we saw your tape, and this is like a VHS tape, right? Yeah. This is in early 2000 actually. And we saw your tape, and we called the Feather River Community College. Your coach said, you're done playing. You went to Barry University, and you're done, but you have 1 year of eligibility. We have a full scholarship. Do you want to come out here? And I said, well, not, whatever. I don't know. What kind of money do you have? Do you have a full scholarship? Because some of them say they have a full scholarship and it's just partial. And you're like, great, I'm in debt.
You're like, you don't have to pay school, but you have to pay for books. And
and a lot of it is like, we have a full scholarship. And guess what? The full scholarship is books. Yeah. Great, thanks. Even though books are expensive, but school's more. So they said, hey, school starts in like 4 days. We have a full scholarship. We'd love for you to come out and play for the year. And it was like the next day I packed my bags, and I was gone within not even 24 hours.
Where in Kansas?
Wichita.
It was in Wichita.
Yeah. So it was Newman University.
Newman.
And Newman. Yeah. Yeah. And it was an NA, it was an
Seinfeld.
NAIA school. So it wasn't NCAA. So they didn't have the same regulations and stuff. So I didn't need to sit out a year. And I played there. And Wichita was awesome. I loved it. I had a great time there. Continued with my history degree. I was smart enough at that point, and I learned from me being an idiot that I needed to get this degree.
Yeah.
And then, so played there, finally got my degree, and went back to the Mirage and started as a pool supervisor. They promoted me, and they wanted to promote me before. So I was in charge of I was a 21-year-old kid in charge of 50 lifeguards and pool attendants and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a cool learning experience. And that's how I got into hospitality and working for one of the best hospitality driven minds, we've seen in the hotel industry, in Las Vegas. So all of a sudden this one girl kind of she was a supervisor, and she took a liking to me, and she said, "Hey, I want to use you as a Kibana host." And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. Whatever. That sounds fun.
Can I make tips?"
Yeah. And I knew how to hustle tips, because during slow times I would be a pool attendant. So I'd pull all the chairs for people coming out to the pool, and I put towels on them. And I said, "Hey, my name's Chris. If you need anything, let me know. I'll get your cocktail server." And, they give me $5.
Yeah.
And if you really hustle, you can make $100 a day. And that was the bar.
Yeah.
Right. If you can make $100 a day, whew, you were good, man. And so
right. When you woke up, you're like $100. I'm going to make $100.
No doubt. No doubt. And so, she said, I want to put you as a Kibana host. And so the Kibanas at the Mirage were, you took care of what you would refer to as the whales.
Mm-hmm.
So the casino people who would usually have a credit line of $50,000 or more. It would probably be more now.
Yeah.
Right. But you had to be an invited guest. So they trusted you with these people who could literally change a quarter in their quarterly earnings report. And they were out at the pool, and they had these nice cabanas with refrigerators and drinks and, lobster tails and crab legs and all this kind of stuff. So I would take care of those guys, and it was a life-changing experience. I mean, talk about money at a young age. It was great.
Yeah.
And so they noticed, my work ethic and stuff like that. And that's when I really got into the wine side and liquor and all that kind of stuff, because I had to, I had to know what I was talking about. So, and then they said, "We have this job opening that, we think you'd be good at. And it's a manager at the spa and salon." And I'm like, dude, I have no idea.
You're looking around, you're like, "Me?"
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, we think that this would be a good spot for you for your future with our company.
Based on your skills, we have this hole we need to plug.
Yeah.
And if you do us this,
and we need to find a sucker to do it. You're the sucker.
We need a guy to do it. And if you agree to do this, there'll be another opportunity for you, kid.
Yeah.
It's like the mob.
No doubt. So I met a couple of those guys.
I'm sure.
So I ended up running the spa and salon, and a friend of mine who opened this new nightclub in Las Vegas. It was called Rain.
Mm-hmm.
The Real World was there.
Mm-hmm.
MTV was at the Palms.
I remember all that. Yeah.
It was rated the best nightclub in the world for 3 years in a row by E Entertainment. You remember E Entertainment? Brooke Burke, Wild on E or something.
Yeah,
that's
I
who
remember
rated
all
it.
that. That's so funny.
So they said, "Well, we need someone to work Thursday, Friday, Saturdays." And at the time at the Mirage, I was working Sunday through Thursday at the spa. So I'd work 4 10s at the spa. And at Rain, I would work 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. So I would work Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And that was just such an awesome, amazing job. And I would take care of.
So what were you doing there?
So I was a VIP host.
Oh,
so I'd bring people in, I'd be in a 3-piece suit and stuff. That's where actually I met my wife. she was a cocktail server there.
Oh, nice.
And the first time I met my wife, we started talking about books, and I was like, whoa, this girl's like way smarter than me. So I need to like read up on some like books so I actually seem smart. And so, I tried to like fake it and all this. And I said, hey, you want to go out sometime? And I was pretty shy.
And you work 7 days a week.
That.
So you're like,
I
know there's not a lot of time
so
here.
much. And my buddy, at the time, Jay, who has actually come full circle, he works for us now at Farmstead.
That's awesome.
He moved out and he said, dude, I love what you're doing. And I want to move out of Vegas. I want to move to St. George. And can I come work for you? I was like, dude, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for Jay. Jay's like, just come on, get some guts and go ask her out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're right, man. So I ask her out and I say, hey, you want to go out sometime? She just looks me dead in the eye and says, nah, walks away. And I was like, man, that's tough.
Dang.
So yeah. And she was like, I just wanted to see if you'd ask me out again. And I did. So we went out on the first day, and the rest, as they say, is history. But so I mean, I was in charge of bottle, basically anyone who got a bottle service at the nightclub, and they went in this one area. We were pretty much the first people to do this type of service in Las Vegas. Now you see it everywhere, right? But we did bottle service with your mixers and all that kind of stuff. And there were 3 levels. There was a skybox where it was really high end customers. A lot of celebrities would go up there because it was kind of private. And then we did these, oddly enough, it was called the Kibana section. And I did all the Kibana section. It was a little bit larger groups, kind of like a younger demographic. And then Jay would do the water booth.
The common folk.
Yeah, kind of. Those tables were like right in the action. So if you wanted to be in the action, you wanted to be over there. If you wanted a little bit removed from like the mayhem and like the sea of people. Yeah. I mean, there were people just when we first opened, the line would go to the other side of the casino. You would wait in line for 3 hours. Now everyone was trying to throw
Night at the Roxbury style.
Yeah. But everyone who wanted to get in, would be flashing $100 bills to our front door guys, and they would just kind of pick and choose, but they had to pick and choose correctly on who they wanted. And that's how you would get into the club, is when you did bottle service. So I was in charge of those groups. I'd introduce them to the cocktail server. I'd walk them down to the like the dance floor and all this kind of stuff. I mean, dealing with celebrities was really cool. Yeah. The who's who at that time would be in there all the time.
It's a pseudo like security role too, right? Like you're there to make sure everybody's having a good time, and if somebody's not having a good time, they need to be shown the door. Is that a little bit of it too?
But we had so much security. And all of them were like just all of them were like Division I football players.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So typically it's bottle girls, not guys. So I was I wonder what Chris's role here is, a blend of the two.
So my job was to make sure that their night went great from the first time, our first handshake or greeting, to the second they left. Yeah. My job was to make sure they had a great time. Yeah. The drinks were always there. If they needed a cocktail server, get the cocktail server. If they needed something special, if someone's birthday, that happened a lot, all that kind of stuff. If they ever wanted to go out to a dinner prior to, I would set that up. Oh, cool. If they wanted to go to a nightclub like afterwards, a real
concierge, like type setup. Cool.
Yeah. So I'd work Sunday through Wednesday at the Mirage, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday I work at the nightclub, and Saturday nights I'd get off at around 4, and my shift on Sunday was 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Mirage. So I'd sleep like an hour in my car, and then in my break I'd find a massage room and grab a quick nap. And at that time I was just driven because I wanted to get ahead financially. Yeah. And that's kind of like where my work ethic, I didn't care. I didn't care about work. I found it to be fun. It was fascinating meeting new people, and I met so many different people. And then when I decided like, hey, this is a little bit too much. I'm on year 2 of this, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that there seems to be like a time limit is you could do that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it was getting unhealthy for me to where my sleep deprivation, I was just like, I need sleep. And even Stacy, who was my girlfriend at the time, was like, you need to like sleep for maybe 8 hours. That might be healthy for you. And so I decided to leave the nightclub. And at the Mirage, I was promoted to Kibana manager. They brought me back out to the pool. And so I had a whole crew. They redid the entire Kibanas at the Mirage. And through there, I got introduced to the restaurant industry. So I took care of a person who owned restaurants in San Diego, in La Jolla, North County, San Diego, La Jolla, Encinitas. It was a sushi restaurant. I knew nothing about sushi, but she came up to me and she's like, look, you've taken care of us for like 5 years in a row. You've been great. We have a general manager opening at our place, and we just can't get this place straight. It's busy, but I don't know why we keep losing money. So I tell my fiance at the time, who was Stacy, I was like, I have this opportunity to go to San Diego, and she was all about it. She's like, let's go. Let's leave tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So we lived in a place called Cardiff by the sea. We lived west of the 5. It was so cool. We lived in a little tiny surfer shack. It was total garbage.
In La Jolla?
In Cardiff.
Oh, in Cardiff.
Cardiff. Okay. Yeah. Cardiff by the sea. So it's in between like Solano Beach, like Del Mar.
Okay.
And Encinitas.
Okay.
Just south of like Carlsbad.
Okay.
I ran 2 sushi restaurants, and one was in La Jolla, one was like on a street called Girard, and super obviously high end, learning a lot about the fish, too, the Japanese names and all that kind of stuff. And we had a place in Encinitas, and the place was just an absolute mess. Employees or servers were transferring, like they could transfer whatever they wanted. So, get this, they had this one roll. It was called the Dawn roll. It's $20. So they would find whoever would pay cash with this $20 Dawn roll, and they would keep the cash and then transfer it to another server. And they would keep the extra $20.
Yeah.
And that thing would be transferred. That thing would be transferred 100 times a night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand. We never have tickets for these Dawn rolls. It was like my second or third week there. And I'm like, why are you guys making so many Dawn rolls? You don't have the ticket, to the sushi chefs.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. They just always call these Dawn rolls. And I think it's screwed up in the system. So I'm like, yeah, it must be. So I'm looking into it. I'm like, man, this thing. So we had one server. And he was like a surfer. He was a surfer dude, total surfer, like stoner guy, right? And he was like, I go up to him and I say, hey, I noticed you transferred this roll like 47 times last week. And he's like, bro, like I don't really know like what I did. And I'm like, okay, man. Well, first of all, you're fired. I think you know what you did. And he's like,
that impression was spot on, by the way. So spot. I can imagine who he is.
And he was like, nah, you caught me.
You got
me. And I was like, thanks, man. And he goes, you're not gonna like press charges or anything, are you? I was like, no, but you're fired. And he's like, yeah, it's cool. He's like, is everyone else gonna get fired? And I was like, well, we're gonna get down to the bottom of it. He's like, okay, and he ratted out his buddy.
No, he didn't.
And he goes, my buddy transferred it more times than I did. And I go, why did you do that?
He'd already been fired.
Yeah. And I go, why did you do that? And he's like, dude, that guy could shred. And I need him on the waves with me and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, all right. Yeah.
That guy could shred.
And so
That's
he's like, yeah, I want him to go out with me. And I was like, okay, cool. I guess you guys are both fired.
Spicoli, dude. Spicoli working there.
Some tasty waves, man. So, I did that, and I learned so much. And some of the things that I learned were the most valuable, or what not to do.
Yeah,
the ownership group kind of spent a little bit too much money, and they were like for show. They really were. They wanted people to be impressed by them, and that was one of the things that When I first started making money as a host and all that kind of stuff, I remember the dumbest purchase of my life. Not to say that people who make this purchase are dumb, but it was dumb for me. Mm-hmm. And I got a cool like tag watch, and the thing cost me like $2,000-$3,000, and I wore it like maybe 5 times, and I'm like, what am I doing? This is just the dumbest thing that I ever bought in my life. It was like, so much money, and I could have just put that money away and, done that. So, I'm just not, I've never been that type of, I drive a Toyota. I don't care. Like I love, I'm not a car guy. I'm not a show, but those owners they wanted to drive the latest.
There's a lot of that in
greatest.
California, man.
A lot of that. It was a lot of show me. And they couldn't write checks. I mean, a lot of times they're like, Chris, do you mind if we pay you in like a week? And I was like, no, you have to pay me now. It's kind of the law. So they ended up selling those restaurants, and it was, they sold it to like a group of Japanese businessmen, and they're like, hey, like, no offense, but it's a family run business now. So, and what was cool is I signed a 2-year contract, and they gave me the old owners, who were nice people. They gave me a 6 months severance, they bought out the rest of my contract. So I was like, at the time, technically unemployed in San Diego. And so I was riding my beach cruiser everywhere. I ate at this place called Juanita's every day. It was a taco shop. And, like Stacy was, okay, honey, you can't go to Juanita's every day,
nice.
And that was in Leucadia. That was my jam. So like, we moved back to Las Vegas because California was just so expensive. It was a great
Were you renting out there?
Yeah. Now we bought, when we had those jobs in Las Vegas, we bought in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. So we bought, I bought a townhome in 2002, sold it in 2006.
Nice.
She bought a little, like one of those little 1-car garage homes in 2003, sold in 2007. Good timing. Yeah. Super fortunate for that. Moved back to Las Vegas, bought a little townhome together. At the time we were married. We got married in San Diego. Mm-hmm. In 2007. We're about to have our 17th wedding anniversary on the 20th.
Congrats, man.
Thank you, man.
Nice.
Thank you. So that, and then I got a job at Mandalay Bay. I applied for a job at Mandalay Bay for this 1 Michelin star. Someone told me I needed to go apply for it, a friend of mine. And it was a 1 Michelin star restaurant by the name of Mix, and it was a chef named Alain Ducasse. Alain Ducasse at the time was the youngest chef with the most Michelin stars. And Michelin stars are obviously a nice guide to like a fine dining, right? So if you're 1 Michelin, do you know how that works?
Roughly, but let's explore that. So it's a rating system, right? And
so it's a rating system, and Michelin is a tire company. Mm-hmm. And so when in France, when you bought a new set of Michelin tires, they gave you a Michelin guide. Mm-hmm. And as part of the Michelin guide, they gave out stars to restaurants. 1 star was, if you're in the area, go see it. Mm-hmm. If Michelin 2 stars was worth the trip, right? So like 1 or 2 hours out of your way, go see a 2 Michelin star. And 3 Michelin star was definitely go out of your way to see this restaurant in your new Michelin tires with your car.
That's funny. I didn't know how they started this rating system, but that's actually fascinating.
So this was a 1 Michelin star restaurant. It was French. I'm not, as you could probably tell, I'm not a fine dining guy.
You're Michelin, but the tire version of Michelin.
I'm a tire.
Not really the.
I'm the back left tire of a Michelin set,
nice.
And so I interview with this super interesting guy, and he's still to this day, he's a great friend of mine. And he became a great friend of mine, because of this. And his name was Tex. He's English. Mm-hmm. And he was actually in a English rock band. And they had a number 2 hit on the Billboard top whatever, but he became, his band broke up and all this kind of stuff, and he got into the food and beverage industry, and he was the assistant general manager of this establishment. And so I have an interview with him, and he's an English guy. So he's like, yes, Chris Connors. So what do you know about Michelin stars? And I was like, nothing. I have no idea what a Michelin star. I have no clue. I was like, I don't have any idea. He explained it to me. And then he's like, tell me what you know about the preparation of, our barramundi. And I was like, what the hell is barramundi? And it's a fish, So right. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And I'm like, I'm so far. And I told him, I'm like, I'm so far out of my element. I don't know, but I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
And he's like, I like your nightclub experience, because we have a lounge on this side. So the nightclub industry and management. And he's like, judging by your resume, I think you have the ability to do this.
Right.
And he goes, I don't have too many people who are honest in interviews. And they all try to BS
Fake
their way.
through.
Yeah. And I was like, man, I don't have the ability to do that. And but I'll learn. Like, can I work in the kitchen to learn? And he's like, people fly from all over the world to work here, and like his English. And he's like, no, you cannot.
Not a chance you come to the kitchen.
Yeah.
If I catch you in the kitchen, I'm going to kick you out myself.
Yeah. Good English accent. I can't do the
No,
accent.
you were doing great.
And so I started there as a manager, and I kind of had to fake my knowledge for the time being. And then I just kept working. And I'm like, I'm going to go in before anyone gets here and go into the kitchen and see them prep and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how I brought our dessert, our pastry chef, Marie, to St. George.
Man, that's
who
cool.
makes all of our tarts, cakes, all that kind of stuff. So she runs our department there. I worked with her at Mix. She was the pastry chef there. And just these relationships coming, and that's how it works. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so I called Marie, years ago, 3 years ago. And I just said, hey, we have this. And I know that you kind of weren't in love with Las Vegas. Did you come out here? And she was a hiker, avid hiker. She loves running and all that, super outdoorsy. She's like, oh yeah, sounds great. So that's how we got Marie, is through, I was at Mix for 4 years, and that was during an economic downturn. So, I was just, our biggest thing there was like, and I never want my employees to feel this way, but our biggest thing was just be lucky you have a job.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the worst thing to ever tell an employee. But that's what I was told every day. Just be lucky you have a job. I mean, our MGM stock went to $2.13.
Yeah. Vegas got beat up.
Terrible.
Real bad.
It's funny because, I mean, talking about real estate, it was all this hype, right? So this city center project, city center. So it was Aria, where Aria is now. And my friends and I, there were 7 of us. We formed an LLC. It was the first time I formed an LLC, and we each put in, which is still a ton of money, right? But ton of money to me back then. That was like everything. We put in $20,000 each to buy this condo at the Veer Towers. If you look at City Center, they're the towers that kind of go like this. Yeah. And that was in 2007. So needless to say, that wasn't a very savvy investment. But obviously, I did well with the condo that I bought. I bought it with my own money, and I was super proud of that. And that changed my life forever financially. So, I took MGM or someone with MGM, different company, I don't know what it was. They came up to us and said, look, we know you're going to foreclose on this thing. We're going up to everyone who's going to,
lose,
bow out. And it was, at that point, it was everyone who was just like, why am I going to stick around with something at $1.4 million valuation? Now the thing's worth $600,000.
Yeah.
So they offered for the $20,000 I put in, they offered me $5,000 back, and I couldn't give it back. I was like, yes, absolutely. Like no poker face whatsoever. I was like, yep, no negotiation.
Yep.
So, that was my time where I was like, okay, from now on, I need to invest in things that I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a real estate investor, right? I know what to look for when it comes to a certain demographic and a certain location with restaurants and things like that, what I'm looking for and what's specific to Farmstead, but I don't have the talent that you have, looking at the numbers and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Learned a valuable lesson there. It cost me $15,000, but I know that I'm not a real estate mogul.
Yeah.
Things now have changed for me a little bit to where I could look at a vacant piece of land, be like, you know what, I'm pretty confident that this would work here and here, and this is what it would cost and all that kind of stuff. But
it's funny because the principles are all the same, right? The principles you learned young with the horses are the same principles in making those decisions kind of as you've gone along. Even that gamble with the Aria at the time, from a real estate perspective, there's a reason the whole thing collapsed, but there's also a reason why there was so much money in that pillar of the economy in real estate as in general anyway, right? And even today, the Aria still got built, and whoever bought that from you for $5,000 made a killing off of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So looking over time, there's things that you knew and you were willing to learn. The Michelin-starred restaurant, but from the pool to the bar to the sushi, right? Each time it's like, okay, I understand what are the most important factors. What are the key levers in each one of these businesses? And if you don't know it right away, over time, you'll figure out where the levers are. And, it's like solving a puzzle in a way, right?
No doubt. So, after Mandalay Bay, it was getting like, I was never at the Mirage. I loved working at the Mirage. At Mandalay Bay, it was a little bit more corporate and I hated it.
Yeah.
And at that time I was like, you know what? I want to own my own business. I didn't realize how little I knew and how dumb of a idea that was, but I was ignorant enough to understand, that, I guess I was smart enough to understand that I had to work hard enough because I wasn't smart enough.
Yeah.
Right. So, in 2009, I said, I'm going to open up a restaurant, and not knowing how much like little things like a hood, would be grease trap, all these things. Right. And, I said, I just got to get out of this corporate thing, but I need more money to do a restaurant. No one was lending money in 2009. No one. I remember going into a bank and they were like, doesn't matter how much money you have down. Like we're not loaning anything.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to use my own money. And my wife, Stacy, was just like, I believe in you. And here it is.
Yeah.
And we went all in. And I remember the 6 months prior to, I said, okay, well, I'm willing to work. So I got a job as a Kibana host at Wynn.
Nice.
They hired me. So, I was a manager at Mandalay Bay, and I'm like, I'm only doing this. I'm a little bit older now. I was 29. And so I got a job as a Kibana host at Wynn for 6 months in order to raise a little bit more capital to open up my first restaurant. My first restaurant, I went into this one place that reminded me of Southern California. It was called Rachel's Kitchen, and she had a place in Summerlin. Little tiny hole in the wall, but I really liked the menu. I thought it would be good on the other side of town where I lived in Green Valley in Las Vegas. So I talked to her, and her name was Debbie. Super nice, very knowledgeable. And I said, hey, would you be willing to franchise this? And I didn't even really know how a franchise worked. Like I maybe some searches on the internet and all this kind of stuff, but not. Yeah. She's like, oddly enough, we're doing a franchise. We're doing our franchise disclosure documents right now because I want to franchise this. So I was her first franchisee.
Nice.
And we opened up in Green Valley. I would have fallen flat on my face if I didn't do a franchise first. Yeah. Which goes back to like what I was saying at the very beginning is, franchises are attractive for some people, and they were super attractive for me because I didn't know what I was doing. And I opened up, we put all of our life savings into it. I opened the door and I had $500 to my name and my checking account. That's all. That's all we had. My wife and I worked nonstop. I didn't care. That came back to my high school days, someone telling me I couldn't do it in my senior year in high school with the baseball team. And I was like, I'm going to show you. Mm-hmm. And that drove me. Yeah. I would say I'm extremely competitive. I'm going to win. Yeah. And, that was my thing. It was just, I worked my butt off. Stacy worked her butt off, and we made it work. And it was like the first 2 years were such a grind. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about my wife, who is like smartest, most calm person and practical person in the world.
Had you guys ever worked together before that?
At the nightclub?
Aside from that,
kind of like,
because that's kind of separate. Yeah, you had separate roles that you were kind of passing.
No, we didn't.
Interesting.
And we never fought or anything like that. We never, it wasn't even like, it was just like, we all had the same goal in mind. Mm-hmm. So we were rowing the boat in the same direction. Mm-hmm. No one was going off course. And, the first 2 years was just a grind. I mean, we just kept battling. And then after 2 years, it just shot up. It just took off. Yeah. I mean, 2010, I opened February 5th, 2010, I opened Rachel's Kitchen. The worst time in the history of
and the
modern
best
society.
I mean, I think
it
even
could have been the best. Yeah.
I mean, thinking of if you would have started 2 years earlier, right? You get into habits, you get into process. You learn to do more with less because of the financial situation and the economic situation.
Well,
right.
And also, here's the thing: we opened in the district in Green Valley. The district had Pottery Barn, REI, Williams Sonoma, these big names. They would have never taken a person like me with no experience owning a restaurant if it wasn't for 2010, when they were absolutely desperate to fill vacancies.
Yeah.
And we took over a failed restaurant. Mm-hmm. And after 2 years, we expanded. We knocked down a wall and made it bigger. And it's still there today. I sold it in at the end of 2014. And, that was like the biggest life-changing thing for me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know if I wanted to be in restaurants after that. I was just like, God, it's just such a grind. It's like people, calling in, and I didn't have enough money to pay a general manager. I didn't, I wanted to expand, but I didn't have the means to do that. And, that money that came in was so important. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do a restaurant. And then I'm just looking at restaurants, and I'm just like, else. And it was so interesting with who I met along the way. Funny story. I saw someone yesterday. I heard a voice at Farmstead, and I'm like, man, that voice sounds familiar. And I wait for him to turn around, and I was like, hey. And he's like, where do I know you? And I was like, you did a magazine in Green Valley, and you did a thing on me in the magazine. He's like, Chris, he's from Rachel's Kitchen and Me Gusta Tacos and the local. I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, it's been 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
And he's doing a magazine here in town.
That's funny.
And he's like, I need to feature you. Yeah. He's like, this is so crazy. He's like, this is so crazy that this happened. Just randomly grabbing pastries at Farmstead. Yeah. And he's like, are you living here? So I kind of told him a quick story, and he was like, this is insane that, and it's just people that you meet along the way. Man. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
The restaurant, I got into real estate initially because I wanted to build up some money to open a restaurant. And then you have kids. Yeah. And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you too, is running a restaurant now with a family. Now, granted, you picked the right layout, in my opinion, because when I left BJ's, because I think the last shift I had, it was like 2:30 in the morning. And this is a restaurant. We closed at midnight.
No doubt.
But it was 2:30 in the morning when I'm like leaving, and they're just finished mopping, right? And I just remember leaving being like, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's just so late. And like, you're having to kick out drunk people at 12 o'clock on a Friday or 1 o'clock on a Friday, because we were open till 1 on Fridays. But yeah, I was like, if I'm going to do a restaurant again, I'm going to do early, early dinner or just lunch and breakfast. Like well,
that was one of the things for the local. The local was different for Me Gusta, right? Me Gusta opened at 11, closed at 8. The local stayed open till 11. And I
less food at the local though.
Less food, but more, drunk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I now I'm at the point in my life where I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just it's not attractive to me.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons we closed Kairos. We made the decision to close Kairos is because it was 11 to 7 or 11 to 8. And I said, coffee this space just kind of speaks coffee shop to me. And we could roast at FS Coffee Company. We could roast all the beans for future Farmsteads. Farmstead's our flagship. Farmstead's our baby. Yeah. And that's 7 to 3, even though sometimes I get wake up calls at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., whatever. That's part of the business. I'm usually home by 5 or 6.
Yeah.
We're doing, crazy hours right now, especially my business partner, Lee. He's just the most insane worker I've ever seen in my life. He does not stop. Even when I'm with him, I'm like, dude, you are crazy. You're crazy. So he's in charge of, he's in Leeds right now.
Yeah.
And he's getting getting that warehouse open with our construction team and making sure people are there and making sure crews arrive and all that kind of stuff. And, he's putting up like the TVs and stuff, doing the security cameras and all that. And that's where we're at right now. We're at that warehouse in Leeds, signed a lease in Springdale.
And the purpose of that warehouse is for what?
So getting back to the horse racing, right? Yeah. I need to call the shot before it happens.
Yeah.
And I really think our industry, our restaurant industry is going to change. You need to be really good at production, especially when you're doing pastry and stuff like that. So a typical restaurant with a bakery that we have at Farmstead is going to cost $1 million to open. I want to do a manufacturing facility that's pretty much going to cost us about $2.5 million with the real estate. So we bought the real estate with it. So I felt like that was a good move. And then that manufacturing facility will provide pastry and bread and sandwiches to every retail location of Farmstead. So number one, we don't need a huge build out, which is how we got into Springdale. Springdale space is just a front of house space. We're going to have display cases. We don't have a back kitchen.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that. So you're eliminating staff. You're eliminating really costly equipment, ovens, convection ovens, deck ovens, burners, all these proofers and giant ovens.
Yeah.
Walk-ins, all this kind of stuff. You're eliminating that for future builds.
Yeah.
Now, when I go into Farmstead, when I go into a quick service restaurant, it seems really slow to me. When you go to the counter, you order, and then they bring out your food. It's just me, right? But I'm used to Farmstead where your only wait is in line.
Yeah.
You get your food right away.
Yeah.
Right. So like now we've eliminated when we added a 4th point of sale machine. We started with 2. And we noticed
at Farmstead, right?
Yeah, at Farmstead. So we started with 2 point of sales, and we noticed early on, like, this is just a bottleneck right here. So we added a 3rd, and the 3rd helped. We're like, we're just going to do primarily coffee out of that register. Then we added a 4th 6 months ago, and that's just helped tremendously. So when the line goes to the door, as it often does, and I'm super fortunate for that, your wait's about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's the same as a quick service restaurant, but you aren't waiting in line to order you're waiting in line to order at a quick service restaurant. At Farmstead, you're waiting in line just to get your food. So it's like, it's a different style altogether. And everything that we're making, You know, I was when we were doing research on this concept. What I had trouble with at Rachel's Kitchen was people would order at the front counter.
Mm-hmm.
They would wait in line, then order at the front counter, and they'd always change their order, right? I want a turkey avocado sandwich with double avocado with
can you add bacon?
Yeah, can you add bacon? So you're having these cooks who are underpaid, right? Let's be honest, they're making $12 an hour, right? And then they're reading these tickets and they're making everything. It's almost like a brand new item, right? People are making up their own sandwiches and things like that. And I'm like, the turnover here is just going to be incredible. They're going to be stressed. They're going to quit. And there's really nothing that you could do training wise to train them for that.
Right.
Because people are just going to make up stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the beauty behind Farmstead is it is what it is.
Yeah.
We know
it's already prepped.
It's already prepped. It's already done. And we know it's great. Like this recipe has been, we just put a pastrami sandwich on there.
Ooh,
and
nice.
That pastrami sandwich is absolutely insane. But we played with that pastrami sandwich. We played with those flavors for 4 months, 5 months, you know, and we perfected it the way we want to serve it to you. Yeah. You know, it's not the way that Johnny wants it, because he wants extra bacon on everything. And then he gives us a 1-star Yelp review because the sandwich is bad. Yeah. Well, you're the one who's, you know, wanted this random sandwich. You know nothing about flavors and how they react, and, you know, how this is blanched, and why is this grown this way? And this is done this way, you know? So it's like, this is the absolute best thing that we can prepare for you. Yeah. And here it is. And you could point to it and get it.
I think of the soup Nazi. I'm going back to Seinfeld. The soup Nazi. He's like, I didn't get my bread. Snatches it out of his hand. No soup for you.
Yeah. You're out of here. We've had people who come in and, you know, Chef Chris, before he passed away, was infamous for taking things to the back and doing some special stuff. And, you know, he could never say no to a person. But when Chris left, or when Chris left us, you know, when he passed away, I was like, look, I'm not that talented to do that. And I need to streamline things. I need to keep things super efficient and functional. And Ben, the reason why he came to St. George and he moved to St. George was for a better way of life for his family. And, you know, to be with Chris, to work with Chris again. And I remember meeting with Ben and I'm like, hey man, we don't have the talent that he had. We can't go back and make something random for someone. We have to be efficient and functional on what we do. And we need to be cohesive. We need to be a team together. And, you know, we can no longer make an egg salad sandwich because some person wanted an egg salad sandwich. Unfortunately, we have to tell them no. Yeah. In a nice way. Yeah. You know, I had the staff read Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara.
I gotta read that one.
It's a fantastic book, and it's, you know, what we need to do a lot more in this city is teach the hospitality side and how to make really someone's stay, whether it's 3 minutes or 3 days in St. George, special. Something that they remember. And for us at Farmstead, people are greeted as soon as they come in, they're greeted hello, a simple hello or a simple welcome. It's not a cheesy, you know, welcome to Farmstead where we can make your day or whatever. Yeah. It's just a simple hello. We want to acknowledge them. We want to thank them for coming in, establish eye contact, smile, you know, and if we have an extra pastry, I mean, break off a cookie and give it to a kid. Yeah. You know, things like that. I mean, those are what make us so unique and so special. And I hope I don't think we ever will lose that. You know, and I hope we get better as a city with that, you know, as far as hospitality goes.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point, and another a conversation for a whole nother hour, dude. We could talk for a while on this specifically, but one of the things that I loved about St. George in 2015 was, man, everybody was nice. Everybody's nice. You go into stores. It's in California. It was not that way. Yeah. And you get into cities where everybody's just another number, right? You're just another human. Everybody's in their own world, which is so funny. You get bigger and people get more narrow focused into their own little self-absorbed world.
No doubt.
And when you know the people, when like you see the mayor at the store that everybody shops at, right? And when you see city council members or business owners are there they actually own and work at that location, right? Where you get to meet these people. That was so unique, for me coming from California, but especially for my wife, it just jumped out. And it seems like there's been some times where we've lost that in some ways. And St. George word of mouth on Facebook isn't the best like sample to draw from, but you can tell that there's animosity, kind of from the born and raised here to a lot of the people that have come from elsewhere. And we've grown a lot in the last really probably 7 to 8 years, probably more so than we have, historically. And so I'm hoping that it's not a trend where we start to lose some of that hospitality piece to it.
I mean, I lived in six homes.
Yeah. All over the place too.
Right. I knew one neighbor.
Wow.
And I live here in St. George. I know the person who lives across the street from me. First name basis. I know my 2 neighbors. Mm-hmm. I know the person who lives on the corner. I know the person who lives kitty corner to me. I know the people on my walk because I try to walk to work almost every day.
Yeah.
And it's so many places, LA, Las Vegas, so many are commuter. There's usually what happens is everyone is from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think we're getting some of that in St. George. It's hard. Mm-hmm. If you're a local, you lived here all your life and you see some people coming in from out of town, and they're bringing in things that maybe you don't like. Mm-hmm. It's hard. I get it. I mean, I want to come in and say, look, I'm a visitor here right now. This is going to be my future home. I love it here. Mm-hmm. St. George is amazing. I want to be here for the rest of my life. I love it. And I want to raise my kids here, and the education is great, and the people are great, and they're super friendly, and they're super enthusiastic and positive. And when you open a restaurant in Las Vegas, people go there to critique it and give you 1-star Yelp reviews. I mean, it's like everyone is a critic there, and they'll go in and just blast you. They don't care because they don't care about you necessarily. They care. Sometimes it's a very self-serving, big city type of feel.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's great things about Las Vegas. I love the food and beverage side of it. I love the hospitality side of it. But when I go and visit Las Vegas, I can't wait to get back now. Yeah. Like I go through the gorge and I'm just like, I'm home, and with St. George, it's just a very special, unique place to me. And I hope we never lose that. It's like, at a 4-way stop. Do you remember any time when you lived in California where people would be like, oh no, you go. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, people aren't trying to hit me.
I ever went to a 4-way stop. It was a light or you're on the freeway, right?
Yeah.
There was no, you couldn't even slow down long enough for a 4-way stop. But yeah, to your point, like,
and people are saying thank you. Yeah. People say hello.
Yeah.
People establish eye contact, like they look you in the eye and they just say hello, and they're super welcoming.
It's so funny that these are things that we're like valuing. We've
it's
digressed so far, as a culture across the country, right? In these different areas to where we value this here in St. George, and I don't want to lose it either. And this goes back to something. You're on the St. George Chamber of Commerce, right? You're on the board for the Chamber of Commerce, and one of the conversations you and I are having, and also other business owners, like, hey, we're going to grow no matter what we do, right? Yeah. The growth is going to continue to happen, but how should we grow? What are the principles? What are these fundamental principles on, hey, what are the things that we for sure want to keep, and how do we do that? And keeping the conversation alive for, what are these things? Let's not forget these things. And most of the people that were born and raised here, they call it the Dixie spirit, right? They call it, it's a cultural thing that they all believe in as well. And so the better option is not letting somebody come in here and change necessarily who we are, but how do they add to it? Right. How can we add to that kind of a culture of neighborhood friendly? We want to grow an environment where there's solid relationships. We don't want to, the self-absorbed big city thing, I think, is what most people are afraid of.
Do you
think that's true?
Kind of. I think it starts with respect and communication. And I think we could respect each other enough to communicate freely and openly and not be afraid of a backlash. You know what I mean? If I believe in something different than you, let's talk about it. I think we've lost that in our society as a whole. I mean, our country. Can you imagine if you were a Democrat and I'm a Republican and we're sitting here talking politics right now? We'd be at each other's throats. Yeah. But, the thing with growth in the city, there's things that I'm passionate about. I love parks. I love recreation. I love getting to know your neighbor. I love the walkability. I think it could be more walkable. I think it could be safer in that aspect. I proposed on a Facebook post maybe 6-7 months ago about a pedestrian scramble on St. George Boulevard and Main Street, because to me that is the most used pedestrian walkway in the county. It's the epicenter of where our tourism is as a city. And to make it easier for tourists, which I think we should do, and locals alike. I was there today on that walkway.
Yeah, I walked, because my office is on 100 South. Yeah. And I just walked up the street to the title company. Instead of like scanning it and sending an email, I was like, I'm going to go over there and talk to him. Just because it was a beautiful morning and I wanted to go walk up the street. And people everywhere walking their dogs, riding their bikes.
It's great to see. Yeah, it's great to see. I
love it.
And, doing something like that, or, I'm okay with shutting down a road, like as many people hate Ironman, right? I mean, I'm willing to take one on the chin. My sales are down, right? But for someone to come in to see how special our city is, they all don't need to move here. They all won't move here, right? But it's for us to show off our city too. Yeah. And let's not forget, it's great tax revenue for the city. Right. And those things might change in time, and that's fine. We could change that. I think people should be heard, right? The community should be heard. If you have an issue with it, no one should be shut down. People should be listened to, but it starts with communicating and respect. So I really think there's some great things that we can do. And judging, I've lived in Miami, I've lived in Wichita, I've lived in Northern California, and that was a conservative part of Northern California. So that was a very outdoorsy, fish and game type of area. I lived in San Diego. I've traveled all around the country. I've been to every state except for Alaska, and not just like in an airport, what I mean? But like really getting to know, or trying to get to know the culture and communities and the community and you don't find a true culture until you're in a restaurant too. Yeah, true, you get to see everyone in that restaurant. There's every walk of life in a restaurant and working in a restaurant. You have a GM, you have the server, you have a cook, you have a dishwasher, you have all these type of people, delivery people, all this kind of stuff. And that's one of the reasons I love restaurants, is because you meet everyone in society, and you get that in when you frequent establishments at like restaurants, and just traveling and getting to know people in different areas of the world. St. George is, it's a special place. A lot of people want to come here. Yeah. But what are some things that we could do that will improve? It's not a huge change. Sometimes people see it as just this huge change, like it's just going to change overnight. Well, what are some steps that we could do as a city, especially in the downtown area that I'm familiar with, that will improve life for a lot of people, a lot of locals? Yeah.
What do you think if you could if you could impact, something that would have the largest impact, right? The biggest domino that you could push over. What do you think's the most important one?
Okay. I think it'd be smart housing.
Okay.
We're going to run into a problem with Black Desert opening. This place is going to explode over here in Ivins, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to explode. We're going to need 3,000 probably in the city at some point quickly.
Mm-hmm.
3,000 employees.
Yeah.
Right.
I had this conversation with Patrick. I was like, how are you going to have people working these things? Like, where are they going to live?
Where are they going to live? Do you know?
He said
Jewel Apartments downtown. Great. There's 200 apartments.
I know.
We need studio apartments. We need, I know some people have said St. George Boulevard, there's height requirements, right?
Mm-hmm. Restrictions. Yeah.
There's also parking restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could.
Meaning we need more park. Like they require that there's a significant amount of parking.
Yes.
Yeah.
An insane amount of parking.
I've said this before, but there's more parking spaces. There's more space dedicated to housing our garages across the country than there is dedicated to housing humans.
Yep.
We have more space
to
hold cars than humans. It's the craziest thing.
Our car is our third place.
Yeah.
It's home, work, car.
Yeah.
And it's sad that it comes down to that. I think as a society, we can make a change to that. Yeah. I don't like being in my car. I like walking to work. I meet all my neighbors by walking to work. You have lower crime rates.
Yeah, the residual impacts are amazing.
It's amazing. And I think on St. George Boulevard, a lot of people are concerned about views, how it's going to block views, how it's going to affect traffic, right? All those things are, I get it. Mm-hmm. I understand. But I can't tell you how many employees I lose because they leave St. George and go somewhere else, like Las Vegas, because they could find housing.
Mm-hmm.
They could find a studio apartment for $1,000 a month.
And they make more money.
Yep.
And so
and no state income tax, right? Too. So it's like that part's a win.
Yeah.
So it's like we need smarter housing. We need to think about ADUs, accessory dwelling units, how we could utilize those. Are there incentives that we could offer homeowners? How about the first thing I look at if I'm looking at a piece of property now and it's a brand new piece of property is what are the parking restrictions here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, the parking restrictions that's why I like going into places that already exist. It's because I don't need to deal with these parking restrictions downtown. And most of the time, you know how many employees I have that work at Jewel Apartments that walk right downstairs?
Yeah.
I have 7 of them, 6 of them, something like that, So it's like a lot of them just live right above and they love that, right? They walk to Smith's right down the street, all that kind of stuff.
Right there.
And people
we got a 15-minute city without having a 15-minute city.
No doubt.
Everybody's worried about the 15-minute cities. We already got one.
Yeah.
You can just live downtown. You got a 15-minute
My bike ride today, I go on the Virgin River Trail almost probably like three times a week,
Yeah.
And I go down Main Street. It's relatively safe. There's a bike lane, and then I go on a trail where there's no cars. It's amazing. It's beautiful,
mm-hmm.
And I think we could really get together as a city and say, what are the smart solutions that it's not a liberal conservative argument. It's not a Dixie versus, no Dixie type of argument.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, you do you, go ahead, but let's be smart about our growth that is going to happen and needs to happen. There's not a lot of, I posted a report today that I read, and it was about the atomic family and how many. It was a map of the United States,
You're talking nuclear family?
The nuclear family.
Nuclear,
not the
atomic, I was like, is
atomic
radioactive.
habits.
Yeah, atomic habits.
Yeah. And so the nuclear family, and Utah is the best with the nuclear family.
Yeah.
It's first, Utah's first, Colorado's second.
Mm.
You know, where I'm from in Las Vegas, you could see now, I've lived there almost all my life, right? I moved there when I was 6. You can see how many people have been raised without the nuclear family. There's more crime now. I mean, there's everything. The education system is an absolute mess. No one's being held accountable. None of those kids are being held accountable by their parents. You know, my mom's a 3rd grade school teacher. So, I mean, I know it firsthand.
Bless her heart.
Yeah. And public school, right? So Clark County School District, it's one of the reasons we left.
Yeah.
It's the worst in the country, literally the worst in the country. Nevada's usually 49th or 50th, and it switches spots every year with Mississippi. It's terrible. How can you be that bad? But the issue is, you know,
there's no leadership in the home.
There's no leadership in the home, and you know, it comes down to what are we going to value? We're going to value family, safety, you know, and here religion is obviously huge, and that's great. You know,
But even if you just break down religion and you say, okay, what are some of the fundamental parts with religion?
Yeah.
And it's structure and in organization and clear defined rules of operation, and the community buys into that thing, right? Like there's a collective agreement as to how things are going to be operated in an optimal way, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot like a business, a well-working business, you know, and I can't help but think that leadership in the family, you only have a few short years to be able to teach that to a kid, and then they got to kind of figure it out, but the world doesn't care. Like the world isn't interested in you being successful. But
look what we're doing right now in our country. I mean, we idolize Kim Kardashian, you know, like that.
Yeah, we lost our way on that.
I mean, there's no morality anymore, you know, but you get, you know, I've never seen this in Las Vegas where a neighbor has helped another neighbor do something. Well, I could tell you right now, I helped my neighbor do something the other day, and he helped me do something the other day. My boys go play next door, and the kid who's next door to us is our babysitter now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we know him on a first name basis. I bring him donuts all the time, you know, all that kind of stuff, because it to me, that's special. Mm-hmm. To me, that's important.
Yeah.
I want to know my neighbors, and the issue that we're having right now is like, we have the opportunity to say, we could build these things right now. And we could build in a responsible way. I don't think we need a ton of 3,800 square foot homes. I think we need some smart solutions to how can we get 3,000 employees housed responsibly, not cheap housing, you know, but some people want to live in an apartment. Some people want to live in a small condo. They don't need much stuff.
And they're willing to live in that situation for a short amount of time in order to achieve that next step or that next goal,
or a long amount of time.
It's like Chris living in that spot behind the psychic shop, right? It's like, I'm willing to, you know, concede on this thing in order to see a future down the road. And so having that missing middle, but we're also just the entry level stuff. It doesn't exist.
I lived in the Jewel apartments for 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, with a family of 4.
For them to pass that was like pulling teeth, right? And that same group that wants to do one that's on the boulevard, right? They got turned down from the city council multiple times over 4 feet of height. 4 feet of height.
Well, think of if Jewel didn't get approved.
Yeah.
There would be no Farmstead.
Exactly.
Right? There wouldn't be a cool little community bakery, which I think it's cool. There wouldn't be, you know, the problem that we're having right now in St. George is, and I know this for a fact because I employ them, Utah Tech graduates.
Yeah.
The main thing that I get for Utah Tech graduates is as soon as they graduate, they leave.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing cool here.
Yeah.
Or there's nothing to do. Now, that's always been said throughout, you know, I said the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing cool in Las Vegas. And my dad's like,
What are you talking about?
It depends on what you want too.
Yeah.
Right. So, should we have more restaurants? Yeah. I mean, I think we should put an incentive for, or put a priority for individually owned restaurants, like mom and pop places with personality. I'm even though I was a franchisee, like franchisees just don't have a ton of personality.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the same thing at city after city after city.
Yeah.
So I think we need to probably concentrate on that a little bit more. I think we need more housing, because that's where those Utah Tech students, they leave.
Yeah.
Because, there's more options elsewhere, and we're going to run into a big problem here when those Utah Tech students just leave and leave and leave and leave. When are they ever going to come back? We want people to begin their careers here and start a family here and, continue with this great economy that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, if you were to ask me what keeps me up at night, it's that, it's that, because I can't tell you how many people come up to me, employees, and say, Chris, I need a better place to live. Like, I need a less expensive place. And they're responsible people. I mean, they've been with me for, they aren't just jumping job to job.
Yeah.
They just want a nice, consistent place to live.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like, oh yeah, we raised the rent this month. Okay. Most of the employees I have are single.
Mm-hmm.
They're between the ages of 20 to 27.
Mm-hmm.
And they're cool with, like, as I was at that age, I was cool with a studio apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment. I was fine with it.
Yeah.
I didn't need much stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't need much stuff. I mean, studies have shown now that generation doesn't want a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So we need to think about a smart way to do this. And there's
if we don't, this is what I see, and this is what happened in Orange County. It happened in a lot of suburban sprawled areas. You end up saying, okay, well, if you won't make more individual small units, then you're going to get 10 families living in one house, and everybody's sleeping everywhere. And then, the city tries to enforce, like, occupancy on individual houses. And then all of a sudden they can't enforce it anymore. And then it just overwhelms communities, and that's how you end up with slums. That's how the suburbs, right? The homes out there in the fields that are 7,000 square feet, you're going to end up with 10 families in there, and the neighborhoods will get run down. And because, the wealthy are like, I'm going to sprawl out over here, or I'm going to go over here, or I'm going to upgrade over here.
Well, what's going to happen is, if you're an investor, right, and you're like, I just need cheap land because now I have to build something cheap, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to have cheap land and you need a quicker return on investment, an ROI, and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to go get land outside the city. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're going to get land outside the city. Then you're going to build an apartment complex, right? All those people will be car dependent.
Car dependent, exactly.
What is that going to do? Then UDOT's going to go through and they're going to say, okay, we got to expand this lane. Now we're going to have, from 2 lanes, we're going to do 4 lanes. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to do 4 lanes. And now we're going to just have more cars, right? Yeah. And you like traffic? I don't. It's one of the reasons I left Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Traffic was terrible. Traffic in St. George is minimal. Couple weekends out of the year, it's busy. You're waiting at stoplights. You aren't in bumper to bumper traffic on the 405. Yeah. We both know how that is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's terrible. So why not have a walkable downtown, a great downtown and when it's walkable, there's a ton of energy around. People are walking. They're paying attention to, cars are going slower because there's pedestrians. Then we're slowly getting used to people walking on the sidewalks, going across crosswalks. Right now we aren't in that society because it's just like, dude, we're on a freeway and we're going, and we aren't visual on people walking around. Our downtown could be awesome by being walkable. Yeah. Right. Good sidewalks, good bike lanes, safe bike lanes. It doesn't need to be a 6-lane, road. It could be a 2-lane road, a 1-lane road. People can go slow, but encourage people from an apartment complex to walk. And they will.
They will.
They love it. There's new studies that have come out that people like walking.
Yeah.
Right. And it's healthy. You're outside. There's lower crime. We've talked about all these things. I mean, the impact on traffic is less.
Yeah.
And people now can't afford cars. They're expensive. You're paying for cars. You're paying for insurance. Registration. So what are you going to do? They're going to come up to me and they're going to say, hey, can I get a raise? And guess what? If I give all these people raises and another business gives all these people raises, we have to raise our price. Mm-hmm. And it's cyclical, and it becomes like just this terrible cycle,
ever consuming cycle. Yeah.
And we should stop it.
I think housing's a priority too. I think there's a lot of different ways to slice that up, but we should. I can't wait to talk to you again more about this.
Yeah.
We're almost at an hour and a half, or
cool.
We're probably right around an hour and a half. Before we get into any more details of stuff, I want to say thanks for coming on.
Oh yeah, man.
I appreciate this. It was cool to learn like your history and the backstory. Farmstead and FS Coffee Company. So Farmstead downtown, FS Coffee Company just opened.
Yep.
You could do pre-ordering on the website?
Through our website.
For both?
Yep. fscoffeecompany.com, farmsteadbakery.com. You could skip the line, right? On Friday, Saturday, Sunday at both places. They're busy.
Mm-hmm. Closed Monday, Tuesday at Farmstead.
Closed Monday, Tuesday at Farmstead.
I always forget that.
But FS is a good solution because we have Farmstead pastry over there.
There you go.
So,
Smart move.
And then coffee, but smoothies. So if you don't drink caffeine, smoothies, lemonades, iced teas, which is what I'm drinking right here.
Nice.
And FS, we're roasting all the beans for future farmsteads. We're roasting all the coffee for future farmsteads. So that's why we closed Kairos and opened FS.
Yeah, I think that was a good move. It's definitely, it was needed downtown too, just for that, going back to that walkability, right? It's like
walkability, man.
Just being able to grab a drink, walking to work,
my
on your
GM,
break.
Tim, now he lives downtown and he's like, this is so amazing.
Awesome,
I
man.
walk to work, and he walks a mile each way to work. And he's like, I'm happier.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm saying hi to people and all this kind of stuff.
We could triple, this is my thought. We could probably triple the downtown population and reduce the cars down there.
Yes. I agree with that.
Easy.
I agree. Yep.
And we'd have a tighter knit community because everybody would still know everybody, right? It's not like because there's more people, there's less connections. No,
you're more vigilant.
It's multiplying. It's multiplying. And so I think, I'm right there with you. I'm excited to see the growth of the downtown, but I think you got an awesome company down there for coffee. The pastries, man, the best in town. I still run into people that are locals here that are like, oh, Farmstead, I don't know.
It's crazy,
because
right?
they won't come downtown.
They don't come downtown.
They won't come downtown. So you end up getting a lot of the tourists and stuff in there. But if you're a local, you're listening to this, you got to check them out if you haven't. Farmstead for sure. Evans Coffee Company. We love some coffee. And we'll keep this going, man. Thanks. Thanks for being a brand partner for us too, man. We're looking to sponsor local businesses. We want to focus and promote local businesses on the podcast. It's like a radio show. So if
my
you're
boys
a local
wanted
business,
me to mention them, Cameron and Preston.
Oh, boys.
Cameron has he has a baseball practice today. He just got done with soccer. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, so they're doing baseball, and now Cameron's going into football. So
sweet.
Hi, boys. Beautiful wife, Stacy, too.
Hey, be nice to mom.
Be nice to mom.
Be nice to mom.
Yeah. They be nice to each other.
Yeah.
They've gotten into some good ones lately.
Yeah, I got the three boys too. Yeah, they're And then if you're competitive, see, I'm not very competitive. My wife's not super competitive. So luckily I don't have that too much with my boys, but I can imagine two competitive boys. Oof.
Preston, my oldest, is very, very competitive. And Cameron is sometimes a little bit better than him.
Yeah.
And so Preston, he practices a lot. So I'll see him outside in our backyard, and I'm like, what is Preston doing? And he's practicing moves in the grass, soccer
so
moves
cool.
and stuff, so he could deke his brother and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, he's competitive.
Good luck, boys. Keep it up. That competition's good. It'll serve you well, just like
and
you
get good grades.
Get good grades. Nice. All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
we'll see you guys.
All right, thanks for having me.